Dear friends, students, welcome to the IAS Mentor. You are watching the Mains Answer Writing Series initiative. As a part of this initiative, we are planning to do 100 questions, discussion of mostly the previous year questions, including GS Paper 1, Paper 2, Paper 3 and Paper 4. And all the questions will be discussed completely by me. Not only the previous year questions, some questions which may be relevant for the coming mains examination, the topic probably, because nobody can predict the exact question. The probable topics and the questions from those areas will also be discussed. Alright, so with that I'll go to question number 3 in the series of discussion. So again, if you see question number 3, which is also from the subject polity, but however I'll do the questions from the other areas also, including governance, social justice, international relations, from the ethics paper and from the economics, disaster management, and also the paper 1, GS paper 1. So all these areas will be discussed, but as we will proceed, it will happen gradually over a period of time. Now, many times students ask me that will this program be useful for the students who are beginning the preparation? Yes. Now, why? Because one most important skill that is required to clear the UPSC examination is the answer writing. Despite the knowledge, many students are not having the guidance as to how to write the answers. And that's why, because of the request from number of students, I've started this particular initiative. And this series, especially the answer writing series, is not to give you the content for a particular answer, but rather help you to understand as to what is the requirement when a question is asked, help you to how to structure your answer, how to introduce, how to conclude, what should be there in the body part. That's the major objective. But in the process, some content should also be discussed, because without the content, I cannot explain all those things. But however, for the content, we do have exclusive series like the Indian polity series, the IR series. In the future, we may do series on ethics as well. So those are all the objectives, the content. Here, the objective is not content per se, but yes, to help you write better answers. So therefore, even now, if you start to see, even if you don't get to understand most of the content that I discussed, look into how the keywords are to be identified, how the answer has to be structured. That is what is a take that the students who are just preparing should take from this particular series. If you are appearing for your mains examination, then it is better, because for those students, it is not only the structure, you will also get to have some added values in the content as well. Alright, so with that, just quickly come to this particular question. See the question, this is in fact a previous year question. So if you see this particular question, you can see the question is asking the growth of cabinet system. So here the keyword is cabinet system. The growth of cabinet system has particularly resulted in marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. So I would say there are two keywords that you'll have to make note. One is the cabinet system and the parliamentary supremacy. And the link word between these two things is what is called as marginalization. Now, I would say these two are nothing but what is called as a subject matter. The entire question as to what they have to revolve around is only these areas. How cabinet system has resulted in marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. That's a basic subject matter you have to discuss. And what the question is asking, basically it is elucidate. So this is it is a directive in the question. So what does elucidate mean? Elucidate means an elaborate explanation, in-depth explanation on what is given. That's basically what is called as elucidate. So therefore, it is also must to explain this, whatever a kind of this is, or whatever is a kind of statement that is given here, to elaborate or to explain or to elucidate that more. It's also better that you give a little bit of more explanation with examples and all those things. So basically, elucidate, explain, elaborate, they're all almost similar. But when it comes to specifically elucidate, elucidate means you will have to bring in among all the three. The highest degree of explanation is what is required in case of elucidate. Therefore, I would say examples are must. So this question is a very simple question. Probably if you are able to help out, to what extent or how do you think that the cabinet system has reduced the role of parliament in our democracy or in a parliamentary system? And with the examples, if you explain, then the job is done for this particular question. Now, so how do you start a question? So basically, you can structure this in this particular format. So how do you start a this particular question? You can define as to what is a parliamentary system. So you can directly start as to what is a parliamentary system. A parliamentary system is a political system where the executives are made accountable to the legislature. Or in other words, you can say parliamentary system is a kind of political system where the government of the day is made accountable and answerable to the legislature, that is the parliament, through various parliamentary tools that they can exercise, or various parliamentary control that the parliament as an institution can exercise. This could be a very brief introduction because you explain about what is a parliamentary democracy, and then you go to the body part where you'll have to establish this relation as to what is cabinet system and how cabinet system has resulted in marginalization of parliamentary democracy. So for which first you will have to explain as to what is a cabinet system. You already explained as to what is a parliamentary democracy. So the evaluator should also know that you understand as to what is cabinet system. Therefore, you can say then subsequently in the body part how the cabinet system has over a period of time marginalized the parliamentary system. Now coming to the system of cabinet systems, the cabinet system is nothing but the group of ministers, or probably the top ministers who exercise the real power. So that is basically what is called as a cabinet system. Or you can say that the cabinet system is the real executives in a parliamentary system. Now, how this cabinet system has went on to reduce the parliamentary supremacy, because if you see, then you will have to bring out the relationship. So once you explain as to what is a cabinet system, you can give examples also. Say for example, in India, though there are council of ministers, among that only 15 to 20 ministers are given the cabinet rank. So they are the most important ministers and they exercise the real power, and most of the decisions are taken by cabinet committees. Now that is basically what is called as a cabinet system, and the reason to bring in cabinet system is to ensure accountability among the executives. Group in collectively they take the decisions. So after we explain very briefly, not more than 3 to 4 lines or maximum 4 to 5 lines, once you explain as to what is cabinet system, then you'll have to establish this connection as to how the cabinet system over a period of time has reduced the parliamentary supremacy, or basically what is called as the parliamentary control over the executives. Now for that you'll have to explain, you can use points also, or you can use a subheading, cabinet system, how it has reduced or how it has marginalized parliamentary supremacy. Now you will have to give at least few points to explain how this marginalization has happened. One, say for example, in a parliamentary democracy, the legislative control is in the hands of the parliament. The parliament will set the legislative agenda. But however, what happens in a majoritarian government, when a government has got the majority, the legislative agenda of the parliament is decided by what is called as the cabinet. The cabinet decide that. And then the second thing is, in a parliamentary democracy, there is also what is called as an institution of speaker. And today the speaker comes from the ruling party. So therefore, if the speaker is biased, that also impacts what is called as a functioning of parliamentary democracy, because the cabinet might have control over the post of the speaker also. I'm not saying that it happens, it can happen. So one is the cabinet decides the legislative agenda, and not only the cabinet decides the legislative agenda, so it is also possible that the cabinet may also go for what is called as ordinance, because we know that the cabinet can advise the president to issue ordinance under article 123. So ordinance means what? Ordinance is nothing but an executive made law. Normally who is supposed to make the law? It is the parliament. So the executive made law, they can also take over the power of legislature, the parliament. So therefore, one is that they set the legislative agenda, which is to be done by the parliament. The parliament has to make the law, which is again done in the form of ordinance. And in the parliament, there is no need for more discussions and debates. But because of the cabinet system today, once a cabinet decides, then the MPs from the same party do not get to discuss more, because they have to support whatever is decided by the cabinet. So therefore, the growth of cabinet system has also resulted in reduction in parliamentary debates and discussions. So reduction in parliamentary debates and discussions, increases in ordinances, reduction in the legislative agenda by the parliament. And over a period of time, because of the cabinet system, the number of bills referred to the parliamentary committees are also reduced. For example, you can give examples here also. You can say that in the 17th Lok Sabha, as per the data available, less than 25% of the bills introduced in the parliament were referred to the parliamentary committees for their scrutiny. If the parliament is not doing that, then the parliamentary control or their supremacy over the law-making authority is getting reduced. And on top of all those things in a cabinet system, the anti-defection law also plays a very important role. And because of the anti-defection law, many of the MPs do not get to discuss because of the fear of what is called as anti-defection law. So you can give all these things as to how over a period of time the cabinet system has started controlling what is called as the parliamentary supremacy. So this is what is a major area that you have to discuss with examples. So you can talk about the number of bills introduced. You can also say that how the cabinet is setting the legislative agenda. After 1970s, if you see, the introduction of private member bill has drastically reduced. So that's again an example. So whatever point you say, that at least try to give one or two examples to substantiate that. All right, and then finally you can also give a bit of critical views, counter views to what you have been telling, how cabinet system has led to the marginalization. So you can have your counter views now. Although I would say that in Elucidate it is not required, because you'll have to explain more of the thesis that is given there. But to be on the safer side, you can still say, now despite all these criticism to say as to how the cabinet system has marginalized, in our parliamentary system, even today, the question hours are utilized by the opposition parties. You can say motions like no confidence motions are used. Debates on budgets happen. So all these things are still an effective control in the hands of the parliament to ensure their supremacy and to make the executives accountable. Now that could be a slight balanced view if you can write these counter views also. Although again I'm saying it is not explicitly required in this particular question. And then finally, after you complete all those things, you can come to a conclusion, where in the conclusion you can talk about why this parliamentary supremacy is essential when it comes to the legislative control in a parliamentary democracy, because the very reason as to why in the Constituent Assembly, the members of the Constituent Assembly has chosen in favor of parliamentary democracy is to keep the executives accountable. And they thought that the parliamentary system would make the executives more accountable rather than going for what is called as a presidential system. And to realize that vision of the founding fathers of our constitution, we'll have to give more power to the parliament, or the parliament shall have control over the executives, which get diminished or which has got diminished over a period of time by the cabinet system. So therefore you can conclude your answer saying, normally the cabinet becomes so powerful depending upon the personality of the prime minister, or whether it is depending upon whether it is a majoritarian or a coalition government. Normally the majoritarian government, the cabinet is very powerful. Coalition government, the cabinet may not be that powerful. But however you can conclude, irrespective of be it a majoritarian or a coalition government, irrespective of the prime minister being a strong personality or someone who is not so strong, despite that, it is very essential in a parliamentary democracy. The parliament should exercise control over the executive, and that's the very essence of the parliamentary democracy. So in this way, you can conclude your answer. Okay, so these are all the way that I'm suggesting how you can take up your answer. But you can add, delete, innovate, because to be a best answer and to get the best marks, you need to have originality. So you can keep adding to the fundamental framework that I'm trying to give in this particular series. All right. I'm sure that this series is going to be extremely useful to the students preparing for the UPSC IAS examination. And by the end of the series, I'm sure that it will benefit thousands and thousands of students in the coming years, maybe even lakhs of students in the coming years. If you like this particular video, please share it with your friends and others who may be preparing for the UPSC IAS examination. Thank you very much and all the very best.